He was once celebrated as a freedom fighter, a man who helped dismantle the iron walls of apartheid, a negotiator whose calm voice carried the hopes of millions of South Africans into the dawn of democracy. To the world, Cyril Ramaphosa was the face of a compromise, diplomacy, and promise. But behind the smile, behind the carefully measured words, lies a story far darker. A story of wealth, betrayal, and scandal. From the blood-soaked fields of Marikana to the secret millions hidden inside the furniture of Phala Phala farm, Ramaphosa's legacy is no longer just about building democracy. It is about survival. His and that of the ruling African National Congress. Today, we investigate the billionaire president, his rise from the union leader to business tycoon, his fall into scandal, corruption allegations, and a web of unanswered questions. This is the expose of Cyril Ramaphosa, the president in the shadows. The rise of the negotiator. Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa was born on November 17, 1952, in Soweto. Like many young black South Africans of his generation, his early life was shaped by apartheid, an unforgiving system that designed poverty, humiliation, and violence into the daily lives of millions. In the 1970s, Ramaphosa studied law at the University of the North, better known as TEFLO. But the classroom could not contain the restless energy of young activists. He joined the South African Students' Organization and soon after, the Black People's Convention. Becoming part of the political struggle, his activism led to the repeated detention by the apartheid regime. It was in the trade unions, however, where Ramaphosa made his mark. In 1982, he founded the National Union of Mine Workers, the NUM, with charisma, sharp negotiation skills, and the ability to inspire. He grew the union into one of the most powerful forces in South African labor history. When the walls of apartheid began to crack in the late 1980s, it was Ramaphosa who emerged as the trusted negotiator. At the CODESA, the Convention for the Democratic South Africa, he faced off against the apartheid government with patience, intelligence, and strategic calm. Nelson Mandela saw in him the future of the ANC and perhaps the future president of South Africa. But history took another turn when Mandela chose Thabo Mbeki as his successor in the 1990s. Ramaphosa was sidelined. Many believed his chance at the presidency was over. So he did what few liberation leaders did. He walked away from politics and into the world of business. This move was not just a retirement plan. It was the beginning of Ramaphosa's second life as a billionaire businessman. In 2001, he founded the Shanduka Group, investing in mining, energy, banking, and fast food. His empire would eventually stretch across sectors, making him one of the richest men in South Africa. deals with multinational giants like McDonald's and Coca-Cola cemented his place among the corporate elite. For some, this was just a remarkable story of reinvention. For others, it was betrayal. How could a man who once marched for workers' rights now sit in the boardrooms, profiting from the very industries that exploited those workers? The question has never left him. By the early 2000s, Cyril Ramaphosa was a billionaire, a kingmaker, and a man waiting in the right moment to return to politics. That moment would come in 2012, when the ANC began to eat itself alive under the shadows of Jacob Zuma. The rise of the billionaire president. To understand Cyril Ramaphosa's scandals, one must first understand the man himself. Born in Soweto, raised under the shadows of apartheid, Cyril was once celebrated as a freedom fighter. He was the man who stood behind Nelson Mandela, negotiating South Africa's democratic transition in the early 90s. For many, he was destined to be the president one day. But the path he chose after politics shocked the nation. Instead of continuing as the revolutionary, Ramaphosa went into business, and not just any business. He entered the world of mining, fast food franchises, and billion-rand corporate deals. By the 2000s, Ramaphosa had transformed himself from a union leader to a billionaire tycoon. The question is, at what cost? Workers in the mines accused him of betraying the very people he once represented. The turning point came with Marikana in 2012. As a shareholder and board member of Lonmin, Ramaphosa called for concomitant action against striking mine workers. Days later, 34 miners were gunned down by the police in one of the bloodiest massacres in democratic South Africa. The blood of Marikana has haunted him ever since. Critics say it exposed his true allegiance, not to the people, but to capital, to money, and to power. As Ramaphosa climbed into the billionaire class, his image as a humble, clean leader began to fade. He drove luxury cars, built mansions, and cemented himself among South Africa's elite. But the deeper he entrenched himself in wealth, the more vulnerable he became. Because when a man has everything to lose, he becomes desperate to protect it, no matter the scandal. The Phala Phala farm scandal. In June 2022, the world was rocked by a revelation that would shake Ramaphosa's presidency to the core. The words Phala Phala became entrenched in South Africa's political history. Phala Phala is Ramaphosa's game farm in Limpopo, a place where he breeds rare wildlife for the ultra-wealthy. But what lay hidden inside that farm would spark one of the most biggest scandals in post-apartheid history. It began with a burglary. Criminals allegedly broke into the farm in 2020 and discovered something shocking. Millions of US dollars hidden in the furniture, stuffed into sofas and mattresses. Money that was never declared to the South African Reserve Bank. Instead of reporting the theft legally, Ramaphosa allegedly orchestrated a cover-up. His presidential bodyguards were dispatched to track down the suspects. Allegations surfaced of abductions, interrogations, and harsh money. It was just a scandal that blended elements of crime thrillers with the highest office in the land. How much money was really hidden at the Phala Phala farm? Who gave Ramaphosa the cash? And why was it never declared? Was it the spoils of the secret deals, money laundering, or undeclared foreign transactions? Ramaphosa's defense was almost unbelievable. He claimed the millions were payments from the Sudanese businessman who bought a buffalo at his farm, but documents and testimonies suggest otherwise. The scandal ignited a storm. Opposition parties demanded impeachment. Even with the ANC, factions began circling, sensing weakness. To the public, the image of a clean president fighting corruption was shattered. Instead, he appeared as just another politician, drowning in secrecy, scandal, and power games. And perhaps the most damning question of all remains unanswered. If millions of dollars were hidden at the Phala Phala, what else has been hidden from the nation?